Hi, I'm Cassie Brider, and this is Empowered Trans Woman. Today, I have a licensed marriage and family therapist and also school counselor who has been practicing in the state of California for the last 4 years. Please welcome Christine MacInnis to the show. Hi, Christine. How are you?
Hi, Cassie. How are you?
I think a lot of clients would have. Actually, this is a twofold question. So, one side of the fear of a new client might be, well, this therapist is going to agree with everything that my kid says, and they're going to make my kid transgender.
Uh-huh.
And then the other side of that fear might be, well, this person's going to be a gatekeeper, and this person is going to question everything I say, and they're going to disbelieve my gender journey. So, how would you address those fears?
Well, I think there's always a fear when you're entering a therapeutic relationship that you're not going to be heard, that the person might sway you, that we have special powers. By the way, we don't. We're not super people. We don't, we don't have the way to influence people or control people. Rather, I believe it's a symbiotic relationship. And so I don't assume anyone's anything. I don't assume anyone's gender. I don't assume anyone's sexuality. I don't assume anyone's belief systems. That's for you to uncover and disclose to me and help me, help you work through that. Especially with teenagers, they're very fluid and their belief systems change. They believe who they are at one point, maybe based on different information. But once we get to gently explore it and really look into it and figure out who they really are, they're determining that. But I'm just a guide. I'm not somebody here to gatekeep or give encouragement towards any direction. The direction comes from the client themselves. Being an informed person is way better than being an ill-informed person that could actually then try to sway someone one way or the other. I am actually the most neutral of all because I really truly understand it in a very unique way. I don't believe a lot of people do. I think people want to put a label and want to define. And I want people to be able to discover who they are. That's it. There's no agenda.
I love that. And a point that I wanted to add to that, a footnote that I'd like to add to that is for the parent that might be listening to this and be terrified about, well, what if I let my kid rename themselves, explore gender, try on a dress, try on a binder, and then they change their mind in 6 months or a year? And my answer to that is, so what? So
Yeah,
what?
right.
They
They
will
try.
they will come out of the experience knowing more about themselves, having experienced epiphanies, and having a much better understanding of how they're going to relate to other people than if they out of fear they had kept themselves from the journey. And nobody's going to be rushing into surgeries or even into hormone
A
treatments at the beginning
child.
of that stage.
No, and I think some of the treatment that is indicated for teens is reversible and changeable. Nothing is a fixed format. And we're not going to obviously encourage teenagers to go get gender confirming surgeries. That would be silly. They're still exploring and figuring out who they are. But I also, in that vein, do not want us to discount how they feel. I think that's another fine line that we have to be very careful of. Just because, they're children and we want to be able to give them time to figure it out, doesn't mean we say, well, you're a child, you don't know who you are. That is absolutely untrue. I've known 4-year-olds who can tell you very adamantly what their gender is and know it very well. So I don't believe there's a magic number where they suddenly know who they are. I believe there are 30-year-olds still figuring out this process, 60-year-olds still figuring out the process.
That's
That's,
very true.
the
It's
same way
important to
with dating.
divorce gender from sexuality. People might come to their sexuality later in life. Gender is
Mhm.
not sexuality. A person can understand and experience gender extremely early in their lives. For some kids, gender can be a moving target while they're basically trying to find themselves and trying to figure themselves out. And that can be a little bit disconcerting or maddening to the parent. Have you encountered parents being a little bit maybe thrown off by this?
So I think that parents are very concerned when their children do anything out of the norm of what they read in a parenting book, what they saw online. So anytime a child experiments with something that's different than what they were taught to believe parenting should be, they get a little freaked out. And I think everybody needs to relax a bit, especially when you see a child experimenting with different clothing, different toys, different ways of being. Instead of looking at things in a gendered way, too, oh, well, that outfit's a boy outfit, that outfit's a girl outfit. Stop believing that there is such a thing. Everybody gets to choose what makes them feel good, and kids are no different. And I've seen, my son, for example, when he was little, he loved dress up, loved it, loved wearing the same princess dress as my daughter had. They would dress up together and have such fun. And allowing that process is not going to harm anyone. They're going to be who they're going to be anyway. And so allowing them to experiment and try new things and actually figure that out is a gift. It's a blessing. It's not a bad thing to do. They will be better informed about who they are as humans. We want that. We want people to really understand who they are, not put, any blocks on that process. Because I think that's when you come into trouble, is when people don't feel authentic and they don't get to express who they are. That's when kids get into trouble and they, become depressed and anxious. So I think
Yeah,
allowing that fluidity is really important.
yeah, and what you just said brought up some feelings for me, because what I've seen a lot with trans people is that sitting on top of their trans experience, there is drug addiction, or sitting on top of their trans experience, there's depression or some other kind of manifestation of dysfunctionality, or self-harm, or very, very low self-esteem. And the trans thing itself is not toxic or bad. The other things that get compounded to it because of societal stuff are really bad and can really derail a life. I'm speaking as a trans woman who's tried really, really, really hard
Right.
to let it go and to put it aside and to straighten up and fly right, so to speak. All I've done was delay my life, and all I've done was please others and prevent myself from living fully. And I deeply, deeply regret the delay that I caused myself in starting to live. Now I feel truly bitter about the years lost. Try as you might, you're not going to make a trans person into a cis person. You're just going to make a stunted trans person, is what you're going to create.
And you're going to create, like you said, drug addiction, self-harm behavior, and even suicide. The suicide rate among transgender individuals is at 40%, not because transgender people are more likely to kill themselves. It's that way because society, family, and all different other factors, religion, have forced a belief system that they should not be who they are. And try to live your life that way. Try to live being told you're invalid. Try to live and being told you're invisible, that you don't exist, that you're not real, that your experience is damaging or against your mental health, or all of these messages that get transgender people hear regularly is what causes those feelings and causes self-harm and causes suicidal ideation. It is not being transgender. If it's celebrated and embraced, it's miraculous. Actually, in my private practice, I see it all the time. Kids who come in who are angry, rebellious, and suicidal, depressed, anxious, all those things. And the minute they're embraced and understood and celebrated, it disappears. It doesn't just, you know, like get a little better. It literally disappears and they become different people. And it's miraculous. So I just think not allowing people to be themselves is what's causing the problem, not embracing it.
It's crazy that you see in some households you see a father penalizing the kid for trying to wear dresses. Like literally, in some families, the parent will punish or even physically punish an apparent boy for putting on dresses. Or well, usually tomboys don't get penalized that much, but also there's chastising, there's negative comments and stuff like that. None of that really has a true reason for being. You're not going to make, so I made the point that you can't make a trans person into being cis. Try as you might, you're not going to make a cis person go trans.
100%. So allow your child to be free, experience everything, and do it with glee and joy. Don't do it with this feeling of dread and worry. There's nothing to worry about. Being, authentic and being yourself is the best thing you could ever be.
Yeah, actually, I relate for a second to the parents of autistic kids. One parent of an autistic kid told me that the moment that she started looking at her kid as like a different adventure and an exciting adventure, and many positive things have been brought to her life because of the fact that her kid is incredibly honest, tremendously focused as a result of being autistic. And so that was a virtue, not necessarily a negative point. And when you start looking at it less in a negative light, you probably make a lot of progress. Christine, I really look forward to having many more of these conversations with you, but we're going to keep these brief, so we probably should end this one here and leave our audience wanting more.
100%. I look forward to having more of these again, too. Thanks for having me, Cassie.
This is Empowered Trans Woman, and we're signing off for now, but see us on the next one.